Hello and welcome to episode number 180, where I'm speaking with Joe Rich and regular guest Victor Briere about applying consciousness with Kundalini Yoga and Ayurveda, how to integrate these teachings in our lives while promoting the divine feminine and healing the duality of the masculine and feminine energy. So please stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. I'm your host Colette, and I hope to educate and empower you to take charge of your health and well-being, preventing disease in the body and mind so that you can thrive in life. I will be sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. I will also discuss topics like yoga, which is the sister science of Ayurveda, health and wellness, nutrition, fitness, and mindfulness practices, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to help you to connect to each other. If you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend that you start by listening to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. Now, if you like the content, please subscribe to the show so the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. I've also set up a new private community away from social media on my new website, Elements Healing and Wellbeing. Now, this community provides a safe space for like-minded people to come together, to connect, to share, and to support each other. And I have many other perks in this community as well, so check it out. I'll put the link in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, and just click on the community tab in the menu. I hope you can join us. I'm looking forward to a lot more in-depth connection and conversation over there. And now, here's the show. Hello and welcome back to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. Today, I'm very happy to welcome two guests. I have Victor Briere, who is a regular guest on the podcast, and I'm sure you all know him well. And I'm also joined by Joe Rich. Hello, guys. How are you doing today?
Hello.
Hello.
It's great to have you here. So let me introduce you to Joe. Victor, you know already. And Joe is actually the founder of the Center for Applied Consciousness, where Victor is working as well. And Joe Rich has a degree in healthcare management, a background in counseling emotionally disturbed inner city teens, running group homes for at-risk youth, and working as an epidemiologist for the CDC. He holds certifications in yoga and transformational coaching and mentors people and businesses in repatterning lifestyle and work style. Joe's goal is to assist people in applying consciousness in everyday life and transforming the love of power to the power of kindness. What a great goal to have, Joe. It's great to have you guys here, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us, and we're happy to be here with you.
Excellent. Well, I want to start, Joe, with your goal that I just mentioned, the goal of transforming the love of power to the power of kindness. And I'd love for you to tell me about this goal, tell me why it's important to you, and what happens when people are taken hold by this love of power.
Yeah, well, we're seeing that in our everyday lives, aren't we?
It's manifesting right now. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's not good, is it? We need to let go of that one. So normally the saying is, transforming the power into the power of love. But my spiritual name given to me by my spiritual teacher means kindness in English. It's an Indian name, but in English it means a teacher of kindness. So I changed it to reflect kindness rather than the other saying. But beautiful. I think the patriarchy, the idea of the typical male energy being a man of power, of success and control and dominance, that needs to radically change very quickly. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to take on the problems that face us today. And I think we need to transition into the masculine energy needs to transition into being more kind and what I would call soft-hearted, but without losing, our feeling of masculinity. So I just put that out there as what I represent, so that other men who can relate to it, can talk to me about it, at least find another man who's willing to talk about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's wonderful, and leading by example, I think, is a great way to do that. And we're seeing more men opening up now and being more vulnerable about their emotions. And I think that's wonderful, and it's what's needed. Victor, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, that is a hot topic.
That's a hot topic around here.
There's some, I'll keep it Ayurvedic because that's my scope. So when I see a lot of people come into the clinic, of course, underpinning their physical disease is a lot of the dynamics between the masculine and feminine, which can manifest as the dynamics between a man and a woman, but that can happen crisscross. So you could have a more feminine man and a more masculine woman, or you could have a more masculine man and a more feminine woman. And these energies play out, and how we deal with them has a big impact on our body. So I think that people often run into what I like to call their healing duality, which is they have this awareness that they want to heal or some desire to heal, but then they run into their autonomic nervous system or the deep-seated patterns that are actually ingrained in their physiology, and those do not want to heal. And so when we say a lot of women, like emotional men who are in touch with their emotions, we run into the old patriarchal model where actually they don't. So there is a desire, there's an awareness there that it's like, yes, I get it. A more healed man or a more healed masculine is certainly more attractive. But when it comes down to it, when I'm living life, actually I'm very threatened by a man who expresses more emotions. That's the duality of healing.
And
right?
vulnerability.
And vulnerability. So you get a lot of writers who wrote on that, like Bell Hooks is very famous for writing on that, that dynamic. And then, there's a crisscross there with the masculine. Men say that they're attracted to a certain kind of powerful woman or something like that. And there's an awareness, and when you ask them, they really do mean that when they say it. But then they run into the old samskaras of patriarchy inside their body, and that does not want that. And so we enter into a duality, and of course in Ayurveda, that will create a separation from our spirit, which is the root cause of all disease. Right. Ties together really nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is this identity with that old patriarchal system, which runs very deep.
Yes, runs very deep. And Kundalini Yoga, it's all about the Adi Shakti. So we're supposed to be in the business of, promoting the divine feminine. And yet, look at the conflict that Victor just brought up. We ran right into it in our very yoga practice.
Right. And can you speak a little bit more on that, Joe?
Well, the Adi Shakti is the idea of, the divine feminine is the principle of, the universal creation. So ultimately, we consider all power, all the energies of creation come from the feminine form, which obviously the woman gives birth to every child. So every man has been born from a woman. So the idea then is that, you try to bring that into your consciousness and create from that position instead of the position of dominance and power and all that kind of stuff. But our culture runs contrary to that. So it becomes very difficult to live. So that is why we call our center, the Center for Applied Consciousness, not a center for consciousness, because we have no doubt that in this time that lots of people will reach consciousness, but then you turn around and how do you apply it into your everyday life? And I think that's what people run into when they really begin a path of spirituality and start talking about trying to become conscious human beings. I think the difficulty is, okay, you go home, you're sitting around the kitchen table the next morning, and now how do you relate to your children and your husband and your job, or to your wife and your job and to people at work, and not just come off as some, new age crystal worshiper.
Right.
How do you actually apply this stuff into your everyday life? And it becomes very difficult because many of the teachings run contrary, as do the teachings of Ayurveda. They run very contrary to modern day society. And yet, modern day society is not a healthy society. So what are we going to do?
We need to go back to these ancient teachings to relearn our connection with our true nature, with Mother Nature, and so on, but adapt them to modern life.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Otherwise, they're not going to serve anybody. And they're meant to serve. They're not meant to be put on a shelf and, adored, so to speak. Collect dust. Right.
Exactly. And, Joe, you're a Kundalini yoga teacher for many, many years now. And so I know you're very passionate about teaching Kundalini. Do you use this practice to help raise people's consciousness, to help people bring this into their life?
Absolutely. We have all kinds of ways to get you to see your patterns and to change your patterns in length of time, 40 days, 120-day mantras and mudras and meditations. And we have all those technologies at our fingertips, and I know it all very well and can do that. And I do yogic numerology, so I can even kind of design, a personal sadhana for you and all of that. And all of that works, and it's great and everything, and it brings you right to your crisis point of the dark night of the soul. It definitely brings you to that. It's all wonderful. And then you look up and you look at me and go, okay, so now what do I do?
Right.
And that's what caused me to go, whoa, I've got to add part B to these teachings. I can't just bring people through the dark night of their soul and say, well, good luck.
Right.
It's like, okay, what do I do now? Do I get a divorce because my wife/husband isn't going along with this new thing I've got going here? Or, my boss thinks I'm a Fruit Loop, or, because I want to bring balance and I want to bring consciousness into my workplace. I want to work for a company who cares about the environmental crisis and all of these kind of things, how do you live life?
Yeah. How do you integrate it into your life? And also, inspire others to see this. So I'd like to back up a bit before we talk about how you integrate it. I'd love to explain to people about Kundalini Yoga and the origins, a bit about the philosophy. I think that would be great.
Okay. So the origins, we're not quite sure of. A long time ago, like maybe 10,000 years ago kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Probably side by side with Ayurveda. I don't see how those two things didn't come together. They have so much interaction. They have so much intersection. I can't believe one didn't happen almost right alongside the other. But definitely was a feminine-based thing. I definitely think probably the original teachers were probably the women in the villages. There were not the asanas that we practice today. Those are fairly recent, in the last, 1,800 years, I think. Something like that came along. The main practice was the practice of pranayama, changing the breath, controlling the breath, and then using that to go into deep meditation. And the idea was to open up the pineal gland, or the pineal gland, however you pronounce it, and make yourself aware of the consciousness, of a greater consciousness, or what we now call the universal consciousness, that runs parallel to our cultural consciousness, if we want to call it that, our everyday life. And bringing that into a higher form, where we do practice what we call Ekankar, or we are all one, the oneness of life, which is becoming a popular philosophy these days. And a very necessary philosophy if we're going to deal with the environmental crisis that we're facing. And so that evolved through thousands of years as man moved out of the forest and into small villages and all that kind of stuff, into the valleys, and our populations began to increase by a lot. So it was a collection point. We could get together in the morning. We could do our group sadhanas. It brought everybody together. It kept everybody focused on the goal, which was, that we are all one, that we're all brothers and sisters, and we should live our lives and interact with each other in that way. And it's still crying out for that. But as you know, in our capitalist societies, actually individuality is taught, and success is, for the individual is prized over the success of the community as a whole. And people are not willing to make the personal sacrifices. And in Kundalini Yoga, we have a kind of a saying that goes like this. Commitment gives you character, character gives you dignity, dignity gives you divinity, divinity gives you grace, and grace gives you the ability to make a self-sacrifice or the sacrifice of the ego in order to achieve happiness or bliss. So I would say that is like the main teaching, in my opinion, of Kundalini Yoga, is that has to be followed, and that the highest command is that we are all one, and that we are all one in our divine essence, and that we need to treat each other that way.
Beautiful. I'm going to ask you to repeat that again, please, for me.
Commitment gives you character. So you must commit yourself, and that brings out your character. And the commitment isn't to, like everybody went, marriage or something like that. No, that's not how we teach it. It's commitment to your highest form or your own divinity. That brings forth your character, right? If you really believe you're a divine being, your character will fundamentally change. Then that gives you dignity. That brings about the dignity of life. You begin to treat each other the correct way. And that brings about your own divinity and the divinity of others. You welcome each other in. So now you're relating at the soul level instead of the ego level. Right. So I may find you very beautiful physically, but I fall in love with you because we have a soul connection, not because I just lust after some kind of sexual experience with you. So do you see how that then fundamentally even changes the idea of marriage and our relationships with one another?
Right. It's a spiritual partnership.
Yeah, and do you see how that fits into the feminist philosophy of the modern day feminists saying, quit looking at me as a sex object and see something other than that. Right. It's not that I don't want you to look at me. It's not that I don't want you to love me. It's that I don't want you to see me as a sex object. Yes. And so there we have teachings 10,000 years ago saying exactly the same thing. Right. So then that brings us all into our grace, right? We're all sitting around the table. We're all having dinner together. We're all relating to each other from that more soulful place. We're all communicating from that more soulful place. And that's how we're relating to each other. And then, of course, it allows me to be willing to self-sacrifice. So I'm willing to put your needs or the needs of the community equal to or above mine, at least temporarily above mine, in order to achieve some common goal. That brings the community forward. That brings the community to be more important than any individual greed or desire, right? I mean, and tell me that isn't what we're going to need in order to achieve a success over this environmental crisis that we're facing.
Absolutely. It's getting people to shift, like you said, from that individualistic mindset, from that competitive mindset into more of a community oneness, that we're all working together.
Yes, that's it. And really that's the fundamentals of it, because when that happens, we all achieve happiness. When we achieve that, we can achieve what the yogis call the bliss state, because you're no longer caught in the ego. Now you're free to explore your own divinity. Right. And Kundalini Yoga is a tantric yoga, and everybody goes, "Ooh, they've all heard about tantric sex, right?" So tantric yoga, we practice tantric yogic practices, but what's called white tantric. It has nothing to do with the sexual stuff. The sexual stuff is called red tantric, and then there's the black tantric, and that's the occulty kind of stuff that I have almost zero knowledge of that, but I have no use for that. But it's the same thing again. It really is a beautiful way to have intimacy between two lovers, is to go that route instead of the route of just
Right.
passion and desire.
Right, right, exactly. There's just more of a connection and a more of a
Yeah.
soulful connection.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And so Kundalini Yoga works with the energy, like you're talking about the pranayama, the energy control of the body. And am I correct in saying that it's working with this Kundalini energy at the base of the spine and bringing it up through the chakras? Is that correct?
Well, right. So you have the idea of the snake, right? The three-coiled snake that is everywhere. It's even in the AMA's logo. And what does it was used, the idea is that if you could get your Kundalini to rise, it would heal you of all diseases. So that runs right with Ayurveda.
Right, right.
So the idea is that, yes, originally it sits at the base. So I can get into it like in all kind of details, but okay. So when you bring the energy down into your body, right? So you're doing this through your breath work or your meditation work, and you're bringing energy in from the top of your head, and it comes down into your body. That causes the snake to awaken and want to come up and chase that energy, so to speak. It likes the smell of it, so to speak. And so it comes up the Sushumna, the central channel, and that eventually the snake would reach your crown chakra or your pineal gland. The Kundalini is a feminine energy, but it's also considered hot. There's a lot of heat to it, and that's why it can help heal and break down blockages as it rises. When it hits the pineal gland, it heats the gland and it causes the gland to produce a substance that then, when it goes into your bloodstream, opens up your crown chakra. And that's what's trying to be done in the, what's that stuff called?
Yeah, through hallucinogenics. So like ayahuasca or something like that.
Yeah, they're using plant.
Right.
So, but the problem with that is your body doesn't know how to handle it's a foreign substance. So if you can create it for yourself, your body knows how to handle that, so it won't make you sick.
Right. And also it's very important with Kundalini to do it under the guidance of a teacher so that you're managing that energy.
Yeah, if that happens, if you have a Kundalini rising, you certainly want to be around somebody who knows how to take care of you at that point, because it's pretty. Yeah. So the idea was, Kundalini Yoga causes that to happen really quicker than other types of yoga. So in the old days, Kundalini Yoga was only taught to people who were already considered yogis. It was not allowed to be done by the common man, so to speak. And that changed in America in 1967, I believe. Yogi Bhajan brought it to here, and he said, I'm going to start teaching it to everyone because everybody's going to need to know this in order to be able to handle the energy that exists today, right now, the Aquarian age. So it was preparing us, and that's the lineage I learned from in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And so that's the idea. Now, once the Kundalini rises, once you've had a Kundalini rise, it actually never resides back at the base chakra. It then goes back down and relocates itself at the heart chakra. And from there on out, you are an altered being. And so...
Beautiful. Beautiful. And you've been teaching for how many years? Decades?
22 years now.
Wow.
And I know I'm so young. I don't know how I
know. That's why I'm saying wow. I'm shocked.
Ayurveda.
I'm shocked.
Ayurvedic Doctor.
Yeah, it's all my Ayurvedic Doctor here.
That's right. You're surrounded by people who keep you looking young. And Victor, I'd like to ask you now, what has been your experience? How long have you been practicing Kundalini? And can you share a bit about your experience with Kundalini Yoga?
Yeah, I've been practicing Kundalini Yoga for 11 years now. And my experience was that it's extraordinarily transformative. So I had practiced Iyengar yoga, or which I guess is a form of Hatha yoga, but from a different mindset. I was just getting into it, and I really enjoyed it. And it really helped my body a lot. When I got into Kundalini Yoga, I was searching for more of a deeper transformation. I knew that I was missing something in my life, but I didn't know what. And I actually kind of it came about for me in a little bit of a weird way. I was practicing meditation on my own, just because I had read about a lot of those practices. And coming through like a lot of the readings, I'd read about like, oh, you get this spiral pattern going up your spine or this energy or something like that, right? And at the time, I was like, okay, that's nice. I had no concept of, I had no reality to that. So I just kind of ignored it. And then one day I was sitting and I was meditating or breathing or trying to meditate. And I actually felt that exact thing that was described at the base of my spine. And it freaked me out so much I stopped it from happening. Yeah. It didn't scare me. It just surprised me.
Right.
And then I was like, oh my God, this is real.
Yes.
And then if that's real, then everything else they're saying is probably real. And so at that point, I started really seriously looking for a teacher. And that's when I met Guru Bhai, shortly after.
Great. That's fantastic. Yeah, I had that experience. I was in Bali and I was in ceremony doing it. And I had that. And the same reaction, Victor. It was like, whoa.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing experience. But definitely had the same reaction. Like it shocked me. It really did. And it was unexpected. But that's,
so what, tell me more about your experience.
Well, we were doing a ceremony in Bali in a yoga studio, and I felt at the time we were doing a lot of mantra, and I felt the energy. I felt a lot of spiraling energy up my spine. I felt myself spiraling, and then I actually felt myself levitating, and then I opened my eyes. That kind of shocked me.
Stopped it. Huh?
Yeah, and I stopped it. Yeah. But it was, it's something that was really stayed with me. It was a pretty amazing experience. But yeah, I in the moment, I was a little bit freaked out by it, and I opened my eyes.
So the fact that you were chanting mantra when it happened, if I were you, I would check into your 5th chakra.
Oh, okay.
That might be a real opening for you. That might be a place where you want to focus some energy to cause it to happen again. I'll stop at this time.
No, yes, exactly. I'll know better. I'll know better next time. Okay, so thank you for explaining that. And then you were talking about how it's important to you now, Joe, to help people apply this consciousness. Once they raise their consciousness, applying this into everyday life. So can you talk a bit about how you're working with that and how you're helping people to integrate it into their lives?
Well, let's just take you for an example. So look at what you're doing right now. You're doing these podcasts, right? You're using your voice to try to create change in our societies, our cultures, right? And yet when you tell the story, it was chanting mantra when your Kundalini came up. And so I say to you, okay, look at your 5th chakra. But your 5th chakra is your voice. It is your expression there.
Yeah.
So look at what you're doing. I mean, that is you, that you have this need to express yourself this way. And the Kundalini rose when you expressed yourself that way. So there's a direct correlation. So if you're sitting in my yoga center and this happens to you, it's great that you had a Kundalini rise and all that kind of stuff. And you can go to cocktail parties and tell all your friends that you had a Kundalini rise. And I can as a yogi go sit in a cave for 30 years and meditate. What good does that do you?
Right.
If I do that? Yeah. What good does it do you to know that I'm sitting in a cave reaching higher levels of consciousness in India while you're sitting in Ireland struggling with your everyday life?
Right.
So, I suspect that I've done that in many lifetimes in my past. And this lifetime, I'm like, wait a second. It's the hero's journey, right? The hero goes, Joseph Campbell, he starts his journey, he goes and he goes and goes. And then he finally achieves some higher state of consciousness. But that's not the last step of the journey. The journey is to return to the village and give benefit to the village of all the wisdom you now have from having achieved a state of higher consciousness. And that's exactly what you're doing. Whether you think you stopped the progress of that Kundalini rise or not, which you did not, but you may think you did. but it still achieved its goal. And you are now doing podcasts, and you may have been doing them before, but you're doing them with an energy now that has invigorated your fifth chakra, because that's why it happened when you were chanting mantra.
That's amazing. I've never put that together. Thank you, Joe.
Right.
That's amazing.
You're so welcome. But you're the one who did it. So thank you for doing what you're supposed to be doing, because that's how you're going to benefit all of us. This is your contribution to community, what you're doing. And that should be held sacred.
Well, thank you for that. And yes, I do feel that expressing myself and raising my voice as a woman and that, yeah. So my voice has always been important to me.
Right. And now you need the support of people who are also patriarchal in our essence. I mean, I look very patriarchal. I'm big, I'm white, I'm upper middle class. So I look like the perfect patriarchal guy, and yet here I am. I'm very feminine in a lot of my behaviors, and I'm all about the matriarchal. And you need our support so that when you do take voice, you don't just stand out there alone. You're not alone. There are a lot of men who are wanting to support women who have a strong voice like you. And when you have the courage to speak up, you'll find out that we have the courage to stand up and support you. And so one feeds the other, and that is how we apply consciousness.
Right.
That's it.
Beautiful. Yes. And it's coming together, both the masculine and feminine. And like you said earlier, it's not the fact that the masculine needs to push down that masculine energy. We want those features. We want those skills of that beautiful masculine energy, but in balance with the feminine, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Then we can walk down the road together, hand in hand.
Right. And that's what's missing in the world, is that balance instead of this duality that we currently have.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We have to end duality.
Yeah.
That duality can no longer exist. Otherwise, we're literally condemning our species to an end point within 100 years if we don't rid ourselves of the idea of duality.
Right.
So this has to come to an end. You and I have to become brothers and sisters, or this thing's over.
Exactly.
This game come to an end. So
exactly, and understanding that we're all on this little planet together, and that we need to work for the greater good, the greater consciousness, and that's when things will shift and we'll have greater harmony. Right,
and our form of medicine will be Ayurveda. It might not look exactly the way it looks today, but Ayurveda will be the medicine of the future, because what does it do? It puts you back in balance.
Yeah.
It brings back the masculine and feminine qualities and balances them in your body.
Right.
And that's what makes you healthy. So there you go. Yeah. We're right back to it again.
That's it. And Victor, I'd like to ask you mentioned earlier about when, as an Ayurvedic doctor, you're seeing clients and you're seeing that struggle in some clients, and this desire to want to heal, but then meeting up with the old familiar samskaras of that masculine and that patriarchy. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we could talk a lot about it if you want. It's huge. It's a big deal that most people come into conflict with. But again, there's some awareness around it, but there's a lack of knowing of how to apply consciousness around it. And Ayurveda is a healing art that it's all about applying consciousness. So Ayurveda has these lofty statements like, the root cause of all disease is separation from spirit. And it's like, wow, great. That's so beautiful and poetic and all that thing. And then you get about 20,000 pages talking about how to apply that into, use this plant here, use this plant there. Don't do this, do this, wake up at this time. That's all about applying consciousness to that one big lofty statement made at the beginning of the text. So Ayurveda is very much about taking it all the way back. And when we go on a personal journey with someone to try and do that, so someone comes into the clinic and they say, okay, I need help, I want to heal. Sure, they might change this, they might change that, easy, no problem, there's not a lot of resistance there, but inevitably they're going to come into the thing that is part of the creation of the pathology. And that is going to be a part of in their system that is somehow correlated to samskara of patriarchy or whatever microculture they grew up in.
Yeah.
And of course, it's the heads of the Hydra. It's going to take on a billion different forms depending on their personal story, but the archetype's the same for everyone. And that's a big point of a big risk point inside everyone's healing journey, because a lot of people say, I'm not going to do that, or they'll make an excuse, or I'm going to go a different direction when we find another way. Is there a pill that can handle this?
Right.
Maybe the person doesn't know what they're talking about. What is Ayurveda anyways? Whatever the mind comes up with when we get defensive and guarded. Whatever our defense mechanism of choice is going to crop up. Because when we say samskara, all we're talking about is an impression made from our past.
Yeah.
That is now woven into the fabric of our physiology. That's what Ayurveda means by samskara. So it's not inherently bad. There are healthy samskaras when it comes to talking about the body. Like the habit of eating at noon every day is a healthy samskara. But we get into these dualities, which we just talked about as needing to resolve. And that's so crucial, because if we don't acknowledge and get really honest about the fact that we have these dualities in us, it's going to be really hard to apply our desire to heal to a part of our system that does not want to change. It really doesn't. It was created for a reason. It once was a defense that helped us a lot, maybe when we were 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, maybe all the way through our 20s. But now it's generating disease. So it's not going to just say, oh, yeah, sure, you want to heal? Okay, I'm going to go away now. That's not how it works. And so we have to be willing to face ourselves, or I guess we should say face our nervous systems. And Kundalini Yoga, along with Ayurveda, I mean, that's what it does. It brings us to that point. It says, okay, we're going to make a change in the nervous system, or the way that this system operates now, and it's going to get quite uncomfortable. And be ready for that, and you can do it, and we're here to support you. But don't think that you're just going to be able to take an herb and everything's going to be okay.
Right. It requires some deeper work.
Yeah, and because that's what drives us down to the root cause, as opposed to just dealing with the symptom. The root cause is going to be much more energetic, much more, yogic in nature, or choice-based or spirit-based in nature than, the symptoms. The symptoms are physical.
Right. And this is where we make big shifts when we start looking at those roots.
Right.
Yeah, and people think, oh no, I got to make this change, or I got to give up this thing I don't want, but it's making me sick, and we go through the whole conversation. But what is often forgotten that I like to remind people of is that once that change is made, you feel so much better and so much happier, and it improves your life in more ways than just removing the symptom.
Right, exactly.
The unexpected happy consequences come. And that's a power of Ayurveda and yoga as well, is that you get to kind of open this gift that was wrapped, and it's like, oh, something wonderful is inside, but you don't know what it is until you unwrap it. We tend to focus on the negative part of it and forget the positive part of it.
Yeah, and I like to suggest looking at this journey through curiosity and the possibilities of what is, because where you are coming from, more than likely if someone's coming in for a healing journey, that it wasn't serving you. So you're wanting something more.
Right.
Yeah. And now you got to go fight the dragon, right, as in the hero's journey.
Yes.
But the dragon is somewhere inside your own mind body.
Yeah.
And so, the dragon's going to make you seem like you're making a big mistake by approaching it. That's its trick.
And it feels that way at the beginning.
Yeah, it definitely
because you're getting your butt kicked.
Yeah.
Right.
And you got to I got to make this change, and what am I doing? And the doubt comes in, and the fear comes in, and that's why it's very hard to do alone. Because if you don't have someone acting, saying, hey, look over here, there's another reality going on over here, then it's easy to get lost in our own trappings.
Yeah, so true. Absolutely. So, Joe and Victor, if somebody's listening to this and they're feeling, this is inspiring them, you both are very inspirational speakers, where would you suggest that they start with this journey?
Where would they start? Email me and I'll do their numerology for them. And then I could help them. I would know where to help them start.
Okay, wonderful. And your
and that's a free service. I'm not trying to promote myself here.
Wow.
But if I was going to design a sadhana for somebody, I want to be very careful as to where to start, because I was doing a lecture one time to a group of people, and a woman raised her hand. She said, "Don't you think the most important thing, she brought up meditation." Mm. And I said, you have to be very careful with meditation if you aren't used to doing these kind of things and you're alone. Because if you truly get into meditation, and I know you know this, but the first thing that happens is you confront yourself with your own subconscious, unconscious patterns. Mm-hmm. And like Victor just said, that's going down into the cave, and that's where the dragon lives. Even if you don't meet the dragon, just going down into a dark cave can be pretty darn scary.
Right.
So the first thing people, a lot of times when they start some kind of spiritual journey, is they face the dark cave, and it scares the heck out of them. And if there's no one there, it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
So at least if you'd email me and I could do your numerology and kind of, if you ever wanted to email me back and say, okay, here's my experience, I could kind of help people begin their journey. I think once they get in the flow and once they meet the dragon and once they defeat the dragon, they probably don't need me. But at the beginning, you need somebody to be there, hold your hand or hold a light sometimes for you and say, "It's not, you're okay. The cave's not as scary as you think."
Yeah, because it can be a very lonely process when you're doing that. So having that support system is huge.
Yeah, I mean, in this day and age too, we can't even go to yoga centers. We're stuck because of the COVID thing, and people are stuck in Ireland and can't come to California and visit me and Victor.
Some people.
Some beautiful Irish women who can't come. So
one of these days.
And have a personal vegan chef to take care of them.
I mean, the offer is getting sweeter and sweeter.
I'm telling you. But you won't have to wait long because we'll be in Italy soon. So
there you go. Yes, you'll be over this side of the world.
You won't be able to get rid of us then. You'll be like, God, I wish these guys wouldn't come over so much. Anyway.
Well, I look forward to seeing both of you in person very soon. But now, Joe, I can hear the listeners screaming for the email address because of that amazing offer you just put out there.
Yeah, that's my job to give the email address.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can email reception at iiayurveda.com.
iiayurveda.com.
And that will get you to me, and then I'll connect, and Joe sees that as well. So he'll get you to us, and then he'll do your numerology, and just, type in, hey, Colette, I was listening to Colette's podcast, and that's all you need to type in.
Yeah.
We'll know who you are then.
Well, that's very kind, Joe. Very
kind.
kind.
And again, I'm not trying to solicit any kind of business. There's no trick here. I'm not going to, on the third email, I'm not going to make some suggestion or anything to buy some crystal or something.
I might.
Yeah, Victor might, but
I might.
I'm not going to, so don't worry about it.
Victor, and your pulse diagnosis book.
Whoa, there you go.
Yeah.
That has been published, right?
Yeah, it's out. You can get it.
Right.
You should get it.
Yes, there you go. Yes, because we did a podcast episode on that not so long ago. So congratulations again on that, Victor. And Victor, while we're making announcements here, please tell us more about where people can go to find out more about you and Joe, and what offerings you have going on right now.
Okay, so you can see a lot about us on iiayurveda.com. That's International Institute of Ayurveda. That's the name of that organization. And then there's Center for Applied Consciousness. The website for that is coming. We're redoing it all. So it's going to have a clean new look. Nice. But you could, for now, just do the iiayurveda.com. And we've got we always have some workshops every month. There are baking workshops, there are cooking workshops, there's, Ayurveda related workshops. There's a big pulse reading course coming up in June that I teach.
Yeah.
That's each weekend in June. So you can find more information about that on the website. We are launching our Ayurveda Academy and training Ayurvedic practitioners starting in 2022.
Fantastic.
So that's a big, wonderful thing. And we have other courses that we teach as well. And then if someone has a business that they want to make more environmentally healthy and wrap all this stuff into their business structure, then we do courses and, counseling for that as well.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
We need
so
more
those are the
conscious
main
business.
offerings. Yeah,
Great.
exactly.
Great. And then your book remind me of the title of your book again?
It's Pulse Unveiled,
That's
the
right.
art and science of Ayurvedic pulse reading.
Wonderful.
Wow.
And it's
Victor's an incredible pulse reader. If you ever can come to California and get your pulses read
Yeah, absolutely.
by Victor, it's killer.
Okay.
He really is great, seriously.
Yeah, well, when we did the podcast episode on it, it was amazing information that he shared. So I'm sure he is. Guys, it was lovely talking to you today. It was so great to have the two of you on the mic together.
Yay.
thanks, Colette.
Yeah.
Thank you so
you.
much for spending time, and thank you for sharing about this important information about raising consciousness and Kundalini Yoga. We hadn't discussed Kundalini on the podcast before, so I think people are really going to enjoy that.
Great. And if anybody has any questions and they get a hold of you, it's a 3-day conversation, Kundalini Yoga. So I'll be happy to answer any more questions.
Okay.
We barely touched the tip of the iceberg.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much again,
Thank you.
wishing you guys all the best. And I look forward to talking to you or maybe seeing you soon.
Tomorrow for lunch.
I'll just hop on over to California real quick.
No problem.
Absolutely. You do have a private jet, don't you?
Maybe.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Take good care. Until next time.
Thank you.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Joe and Victor. And please check out the show notes for all those links mentioned and connect over on Ayurveda.com. Also the Center for Applied Consciousness, and check out Victor's upcoming course, the Pulse Reading course, which is starting in June 2021. If you would like to know more about my online services, my online consultations, my at-home cleanse, which is tailored to you, and my daily habits for holistic health, self-paced educational course, just click on the link in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com. Also, if you would like to be part of the private community for this podcast, you can join us over on my new website, Away from Social Media, where we connect and continue the conversation over there. So you can check out that link in the show notes also. If you think that this episode will be helpful to family or friends, please share it with them, and please subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already done so. And you can rate and review the podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. I would really appreciate that, and we can get this wisdom of Ayurveda out to the larger community. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, take good care of yourself, be well, and slán go fóill. Bye for now.